And welcome to another Biddle, a special edition of Biddle Europe for Saturday, January 11th. How's everybody doing?
I'm fine. Hello.
Wonderful.
We're doing all right.
All right, we are officially open for business. So there you go.
Awesome.
We have a wonderful bunch of people here. We got Tony, Jill, Alan. They got two Allens.
Just call me Penguin. Just eliminate the
And we got
confusion
Philip
there.
and Bernard. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, doing well.
Yay.
Yeah, doing pretty well, Rocco.
All right, so we did our predictions for 2020 already, and I can honestly say none of them come true so far. But we're going to continue on and see how well that works out for us.
So is it just me, or has the stream started? Because I'm still looking at waiting for Big Daddy.
Oh, just about to say that I'm still looking at the party more. Nothing's happened.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. YouTube. I don't know. Maybe it is...
Have you hit the go live thing in the dashboard?
You don't need to hit the go live thing in a dashboard.
Maybe you should.
No, it's not lit up. Like it's not...
I hate the new studio anyway.
It's-
I keep going back to the old one.
Yeah, I hated
Yeah.
it too, but
Is
I'm
it-
going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, I don't see it, but I don't know why it's not there.
Yeah.
It shows streaming on OBS. It shows sending
Did
out.
you check your stream key?
I tell you what, they have been doing a lot. Yeah, they've been changing my stream key every other stream.
Yeah, but I'm using Restream, so maybe Restream's having an issue.
Yes, connecting to. Oh, let me check Twitch then.
I think maybe. Yeah. I think you gotta
Would
love
be a
this.
great outtake for the first episode.
And it makes me happy.
Okay, so we
It
are,
says you're live on
You've
YouTube
earned this
right
through
now.
all your hard work.
Yeah, I got it.
you got it? Are you
Yep.
sure?
I'm 100% sure.
I think YouTube did it again where it didn't attach it to the actual live stream, like the
Yeah.
actual one that I had set up.
But yeah, I've got it right here.
I've got it live too. I just had to, more than refresh. You had to exit out and then go back in.
Right, it's not the announced one,
Yeah.
but the other
Right.
one.
It's
Okay,
another
I'll
one.
I'll tell the people that are in the announcement that they've got to come out and go
Well,
elsewhere.
hold on. Let me see. Restream is having issues. Just 1 second, Zeb, and I'll check to see what's going on. You guys continue on talking.
Okay.
Okay.
Yay.
We are supposed to be joined by Rick Timmons, hopefully, and he was going to talk to us about the Kubuntu Focus laptop that's going to be coming out.
Nice.
That's nice.
So we'll see. That's a high-end laptop. That's an expensive thing there.
Mm-hmm.
But what headway have you been making with your laptop there, Philip?
Which laptop you mean?
Any of them.
Laptops. Well, we have the laptop Pro and the one with fanless. And today we launched the second video.
I'm using it right now.
Nice.
And he has Manjaro green keys too.
No, but I have Manjaro green backlight, keyboard backlight.
There you go. All right. I'm still working on this, so yeah. Alan, you want to talk to us about Ubuntu 1904 ending support? It's a PSA.
Really? So the interim releases, as you know, only get 9 months of support, and I think that comes around in a couple of weeks. I only thought about this during the week that I'd completely forgotten that it was 9 months. I just suddenly thought, oh yeah, it's been 9 months since April, and so it needs to retire. So yes, the Disco Dingo will be no more at the end of January, and everyone should upgrade to 1910 or yeah, that's your only option, really.
That's your only option, right?
Yeah, that's the only option.
Exactly.
Unless you want to wipe it out and put an 1804 back on it.
Yeah, unless you want to go backwards, but it's probably better to go forwards to 1910.
You could be adventurous and go to 2004.
Yes.
I would not recommend that for normal people. For those people who are running 1904 and using it as their production machine, I would move to 1910 and then move to 2004 when that comes out. I'm running it here, 2004. I upgraded earlier in the week, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for normals.
All right, who's typing?
Me.
Okay. That's okay. That's no problem. And also, not only that, but the 2004 ISOs are out to check out. I mean, not to put on your main machine, but check out.
Yeah, I just put it on my ThinkPad behind me. So I'm going to do some testing a bit later on. So the image was built on the 6th of January, I think, last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I've covered a couple of them on my channel already. So a couple of videos on it.
Awesome.
Yep.
So,
and I'm running the Ubuntu Budgie version, and very nice it is too. Every time they bring out a new one, I jump on Dustin on Discord and go, "Right, come on and give me a link. What do you want me to do?"
Excellent.
So he actually pointed me this time to, and I can't remember the name of the site, but it's where you go, like you were doing in your streams, where you go, right, what test would you like to complete? Okay, let's wipe out my whole NVMe drive this time and see what happens. Then let's do one on a partitioned hard disk. So I did a couple of them, and they all worked perfectly well. So
excellent. Yeah, the ISO tracker.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of an old crusty site, but it works. And it just has a list of tests that we ask people to run on the ISOs, and it's probably the easiest way for people to contribute to a Linux distribution is to, if you've got a spare laptop or a VM, is to just grab the ISO, put it on a USB stick, or test it in a VM, and just make sure all the options work, because there's sometimes changes to the installer, and a showstopper. People have different perception of what a showstopper bug is in a release, and not being able to install the thing is the biggest showstopper, right? If you can't, okay, after can I boot the thing, there's can I install the thing, and if you can't boot it and you can't install it, then there's no point for the ISO to exist.
Yeah.
So,
and it was good to see there was a test as well for try and install it, but yank your internet out, so you've got no internet connection. What happens?
Yeah, I discovered a bug in the KDE installer, the KDE Neon installer. When I installed KDE Neon, I was on a plane and I had no internet, funnily enough, and I obviously had the internet disconnected, and there was a part at the very, very end of the installer that tried to go online to do something, and because that failed, the install failed and bombed out. So when the plane landed, I filed a bug, and that was fixed pretty promptly. But stuff like that not everyone tests, because if you've got a desktop and it's always plugged in, you've got to go out of your way to have a machine that doesn't have a network connection often. So it's worth testing.
And I'm guessing, Philip, that you guys do very, very similar suites of tests with your beta testers when Manjaro comes out.
Sure, we will also test every ISO, at least in virtual machine. So if it's a startup, if the installer walks through, if you can boot the resulted installation, and then we try at several of our supported hardware to see if it has worked there. And then if it's ready, we will give it out to our testers. Then they will look at stuff like manual partitioning and something like that. And after that, we'll give it live, and after several previews and RCs, the final version comes out.
And are you finding you're getting enough people volunteering to test so that you don't get any huge showstoppers on the day it goes out?
Most likely, if there's a showstopper, we will get noticed pretty far, because our team is already testing it, and
Gotcha.
Otherwise, the testing and unstable branches also tell us, hey, this doesn't work. And for the KDE development ISOs, we almost do daily releases. So they have the latest Git versions of the KDE Plasma and frameworks. And if there's something going on, we will also know that pretty fast. Plus,
Nice.
most of the KDE developers, some of them already using our ISO to test the latest software.
All right. Just a quick update here. So in the technical world of YouTube right now, we are live on YouTube, but we are live in another live stream and not in the scheduled live stream. So other than me stopping the stream and restarting it and losing everything we just talked about, there's nothing I can do about it. So we're just going to continue on with this one. I'll change the name later. So yeah, and I'm going to delete the scheduled one, and that way people won't be going to that. But anyway, there you go. There's an update for what's going on. Hey, the Bearded Wonder is here.
Yay!
Hey. Hi guys.
Hello.
In fact, for a second, he was here twice.
I was,
Yeah.
yeah. My computer's been playing up. I'm on my laptop and it shut down for some reason. I had to reboot.
All right. Our distro challenge for the 2 weeks was Fedora. Now, I don't on the Europe show. We don't normally or we haven't been anyway, going into like deep discussion about it. But if anybody wants to, if anybody's tested it and wants to talk about it, you're more than welcome to. So you tell me, is anybody tested it that wants to talk about it?
Well, I only gave a very brief update last week, and I think it turned out to be fairly negative because I couldn't get it to install properly. Well, I've had an update to that, and I didn't use the net installer. Instead, I just grabbed one of the spins and put XFCE on. And it's the Fedora of old that I remember from when I first used it in Fedora 26. I was very late to the Fedora scene. But 26, 27, 28, 29 were fine. I had a few problems with 30, so I gave that a miss. And in 31, using the net install, I don't know if it's because I didn't understand what I was doing and picking XFCE, and then this whole big long list of programs on the right come up, and I thought, oh, I'll have some of that and that and that and that, and I don't know what I'm picking, but they looked interesting. And then when I rebooted it, it was like a mess. It felt horrible, as if I'd added conflicting bits and pieces. So I wiped it, grabbed the proper spin ISO, put XFCE on. I'm on it now. It's rock solid. It's as you still have to do the little jig and a dance to get NVIDIA installed, and you have to put the RPM Fusion repos in to get anything remotely resembling a normal Linux computer. Everything that you just naturally take for granted comes in Ubuntu. You have to work hard for Fedora, but now I've used the proper ISO again. It's really, really good. And if somebody wanted to come away from Ubuntu for a little while just to experiment, to remind themselves how damn good Ubuntu is. And the same thing for Manjaro. People say that Arch is fantastic. Well, it is if you're an Uber geek. If you want Arch easy, you go to Manjaro because it just works. So if you want to remind yourself why you're on the distro and why it's so good, go and have a go at something like Fedora, because it's not as easy out of the box as either Ubuntu or Manjaro. But yeah, it works, and it works well.
All right. Anybody else?
Well, let's see. So Fedora, I've always liked it because, for one, it is much quicker and easier to get up and running than Red Hat, and that's always a thing. I've used it before for my animation rendering farm. And this latest release I installed right when it came out, and I noticed the installer was a lot faster. And it worked fine for me on one of my old Dell Precisions. It worked just fine. But I did notice that, yeah, it's got a much better and quicker installer now. And that was always one of my complaints about the RPM packaged distros, is that they have slow installers. So that's a thing. And but it was just like, it looks just like the previous release 30 and 29, 28. So but it seems to be running very, very well. And I haven't had any issues with the packages that I've needed to install. So that's very important, and it's very stable.
Well, that's very important, especially on a machine like that it
Yeah.
needs to be up and running. You don't want to be messing around with it.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. So from this point on, we're gonna call Penguin. Alan, did you want to get in on Fedora?
Which one? Which Alan?
We're gonna call Alan Penguin. So we'll call you Alan. How's that?
We'll call Alan Popey.
Right.
Yeah. Most people just call me Popey.
Right, Popey.
So I have a Fedora 31 VM. I have a bunch of VMs that I use for testing work stuff on various distros, and to be able to reproduce bugs if people tell me, something that I've made a snap of doesn't work, then I use the VM to test it. And I had to do some testing this week. We had a sprint in our London office where we worked on the 2004 theme, the Yaru theme, and we wanted to make sure that it installed and worked well on Fedora and a lot of other distros. And so I had to update my Fedora 31 VM, and it was quite funny because I booted it up, and I haven't booted it for maybe a month or two, and I ran the whatever it is, DNF update, and it chugged through like 1,000 packages. And at this point I was thinking, do I reinstall this thing, because this is going to take ages? I went to lunch, left it running, and when I came back, all 1,000 packages had updated except one, and that was Flatpak. Ironically, was the only package that failed to update. So I ran it again and it worked, but it did make me chuckle a little bit. But yeah, that's all I used it for, was just to test the Yaru theme. The only thing I do remember about the Fedora installer, which I find quite painful, is, well, just the installer itself. Having buttons like in almost seemingly random places.
Yeah.
Just drives me batty. But other than that, it's a pretty much stock GNOME user experience. And also where I think Zeb said about how things are harder on Fedora. Do a Google search for install VirtualBox extensions on Fedora, and you'll find the page is like very, very, very long. It's quite painful, and I saw that, and I was about to give up. I turned my laptop when I saw that document. I showed it to one of my colleagues, and he was just like, "What? Is that still the case?" And unfortunately, it echoes what Zeb said. It sometimes is a bit harder to get hold of stuff. But other than that, it's a stock GNOME experience. Looks good.
All right. I did have one error with my updates, and I don't know why. Every time I go to update, and so if I update in the terminal, it says there's no updates. But if I update through the software manager, which it does say that there's updates, I get an error saying it'll try to reboot, it'll try to install the updates, it'll come back and it'll say it failed. And it says something about error calling start service by name FWUPD timeout. Not sure exactly what that is, but that is a problem that and it's happened consistently. Like, this has been days now and it's failed multiple times. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. But other than that, it was fine for me, except one minor update that fails to install. All right. Anybody else? Tony?
Sorry, you're talking to me.
Either one. Tony. Man, we got too many Tonys. Jeez.
No, I did my review last week, and to be honest, I've had cable issues and power issues, so I haven't done anything with it this week.
All right. Anybody else want to get in on Fedora?
Well, yeah, I tried it.
Let's do it.
I did. I downloaded At first, I thought when I was looking at the ways to download, I thought it's a pretty neat thing, the Fedora Media Writer. I think it's a good idea to bring over people from Windows and Mac to provide such a direct access. That's, I think, really a good thing. So I first downloaded the GNOME and also the Cinnamon ISOs. and I was a little bit mean because I threw it on a laptop with a hybrid card, and and the GNOME went until the DM, and then I had a black screen, of course. So I had to go into the BIOS and set it to explicitly just the discrete card, and then apparently it used Nouveau and it booted. And then I just tried a little bit the live environment, and yeah, it was working snappy, and everything was pretty vanilla and stock, which is okay, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but of course not exciting for me to really dig into more. I was surprised to find that some basic stuff was not available. For example, there was no Nano, no HTOP, no Tweaks tool, no Inksy, tap to click was not enabled. And also I thought it's a pity that maybe I'm spoiled by our ISOs, where you have, during the boot process, you have the opportunity already to set your keyboard layout. So I had the wrong one, of course. And with all the utilities not being available, so you're a little bit stranded, of course. Yeah, then I have a problem with Advaita cursor, because for me it always looks like an accident. It's so I'm used to Advaita cursor is when something went wrong and when you get the default fallback. So, and then I also had a brief look into the Cinnamon version, which funnily enough was able to use the hybrid card, strangely. So it booted right away fine. And there I was a bit surprised about the theming choice. So it was not really the default Mint, but it's a strange combination of, I mean, they are Mint themes, but it's like the icon theme with the Mint Y theme does not really work well. The dark window theme, and like stuff like the icon text was not readable in front of the default background, and so little bit not really taking care of the details, I would say. Like also different sizes and a tiny panel, so not much love shown to detail, I would say. But other than that, it worked fine, of course.
Well, it seems to me that, and I don't know, maybe the Fedora guys themselves would think differently, but it seems to me that they're not so concerned with maybe little details like that, or theming or anything like that. They're more concerned with just making it stable and being able to run without issues. So I don't know if that's accurate. That's just the way it seems to me from the outside looking in.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just surprised that if you decide to change the default, then I think it's good to make a conscious decision to what you change it to, and then also it's, I guess you have to be available for critique for what your
no,
choice
absolutely.
was.
I mean, we get just to be honest with you, we get spoiled with like you said, with releases from Manjaro and other ones that really go into the details, and we are at a point now where you can't really find a bad distro or a bad desktop environment out there. You'd be hard pressed to find one, but we have so many that are just right on the mark that, yeah, we're spoiled right now. So when you see something like this, like Fedora, where maybe they didn't go into the details for this particular thing, it kind of stands out because everybody right now is going for the details, is going that extra mile. So
yep. I think in the old days you could probably be happy if you had a distro that covered like 80%, but now we're spoiled. So if you haven't got 90%, 95% even of what you want out of the box, you're hypercritical of it. And what I've found, Bernard, is because like you, so many other distros keep missing these tasty little tools. I've just got a a little list of applications that I want to install now. So it's either going to be sudo DNF and I paste in the list, or sudo pacman -s and paste in the list. And whether they're already on the machine or not, this list gets pasted in just in case they're not. And it's a bit of overkill, I guess. And I guess you should really look to see if it's already installed, but reinstalling something wouldn't really hurt it. So yeah, that's what I tend to do now. But yeah, the bar has been raised very, very high. So all of these little bits now become major bits, whereas in the old days we were just happy to get a screen without it being black. So,
and then there's the other part of this where there are a lot of people out there that just don't care. They'll just run stock GNOME and that's the way it is, and they don't care about those details. They don't care about whether it's themed or not. So I do.
Or they have the way they want it anyway, and then they will change the default anyway.
Right.
So, fair.
Yep. All right. Anybody else want to jump in on Fedora?
I'll say a couple things.
Okay. Hey, Bill.
Go ahead.
Hi, Joe. So I threw 31 on the test machine just to take a look at. I did a couple spins, and then I threw the Mate spin on, obviously.
Obviously.
And, I think they are the only major distro that's still running Compiz as the main Mate compositor, which is a little interesting. Alan said something about the buttons in the installer, and Anaconda is very interesting. I install a lot of Ubuntu-based distros, and you get very used to Ubiquity or Calamares. And when you see Anaconda, it's a little jarring because there is stuff everywhere. And it's a very good installer. It's very powerful and strong. It's just, it seems that maybe somebody with OCD should work for them and organize it so that things just seem to go right. And if you go into, let's say, partitioning, and you're going to do some manual partitioning, it's not what I would call intuitive for a new user.
No.
But it works. Mm-hmm. It works very well. I really like the net installer. Go through basically one, they don't exactly do what the flavors do with their spins. So it's much easier to just grab anything you want off that net installer. But it's really well done. DNF seems to be faster. There have been a lot of complaints people have had. DNF is slow. I'm not really seeing major speed issues. And one of the things I think people forget is it's doing a combination. It's doing the same thing that an apt update and an upgrade will do. So it's checking the repository. It's not just two different commands. And you can argue all you want what's better. It works. It's nice. On the Mate spin, one of the things that's kind of funny, and you get used to it because you look at a great spin that Manjaro does, or I work with what I call a great version of Mate. Like the Mate tweak tool is not available in Fedora, nor is the brisk menu, but those things are available in Manjaro. They're available in Arch and other distros. And I actually grabbed the brisk menu RPM from OpenSUSE and threw it in here because surprising the brisk menu is not available. It's very nice. It's stable. It is, Fedora does a great job. The other thing is, I went to the Snapcraft.io page, follow their instructions for installing Snap, and there's just a symlink you do to let you run apps in the classic configuration. Classic, right? Popey, is that the confinement when you're doing it in?
You got it.
Yeah. So because I need standard notes, I can't live without standard notes, and it's a Snap now. So, but everything it's a super solid distro, and I really think that if you're someone that works with a lot of CentOS servers or Red Hat servers, it's really something you probably may want to focus on, just because you're going to have that similarity of stuff, especially if you're new. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great distro. I wouldn't choose it. There's other distros I would choose above it, but If you force me to use it, I'd be like, okay.
All right. Very nice. Philip, did you want to get in?
Sure, I managed to update it after installing in the last build. So it took me a while to get it installed because it took 20 minutes on the VM. And obviously I did it with GNOME software, so they forced me to reboot. So I felt it was like Windows. So update installing during system deboot up. So yeah, this was new to me. Okay, it makes sense because then you make sure that nothing gets broken on the running system because the user is out of the system anyway. But you wait and see this progress bar and see, okay, it's taking updates, and what the heck is updating and why taking so long? Because you never have any time frame. So when we do it or when we think to do it at Manjaro, we might add at least which package is updating and how long it takes. And if it crashes, then why it crashes or whatever. So I think it's nice to see that you have this Windows like a progress bar and the user out of the UI, but not telling about it makes not so much sense. From the package selection itself, well, it looks fine. It's a really it's minimalistic, so you can install everything. So for that, yeah, if they don't make it polished as we do and think with the community, okay, which packages do you actually need and talk about that, then it's fine to have it like this. So, and it's only for development purposes and showcasing the new stuff like what is new in systemd, what is new with the package manager, DNF, and so on. So Fedora, I think, is good to be used for that, for developer purposes, but not for the end user mainly in mind. Sure, people can use it, but obviously it's just like, hey, that is it. And mostly even in stock config or not even teamed at all. Yeah. But for what it is, it's fine.
That was one of the things that I was glad about when I did the XFCE. They don't boot you out like they do in Windows. They just allow you to do a normal update, and then they give you a message at the end if they think you need to reboot, or if you yourself have spotted, oh, hang on a minute, that's quite a hefty system component, I'll do my own reboot. And at least that way you do get in the terminal the notification of what you're doing and where you are and where it's stuck or not. So yeah, I'm glad it's only GNOME that boots you out like Windows.
Now, is that because of Fedora being more of more of a corporate thing, that they would use something like that for the GNOME edition, where people would be used to that? Like, it's not going to bother somebody who's used to Windows. That isn't. I don't think anyway. I mean, it would bother us because we know what the difference is and we know what we want to do, but. I don't know. Is that because of Fedora being more of a corporate thing?
Good question, Rocco. Yeah, I think you're right. Definitely.
Well,
because IT, goes through its update process, and often they like to be out of the user interface to do that. So.
Well, and also if you're in a corporate environment, like when you be using Red Hat, they want their computers to reboot after every kernel update, etc. And if they're and the thing is, a lot of people who just like, I updated, I'll just let it sit there. Some corporations want to force their users to just hit that update button and hit that and then do the reboot. That way they know everything is working properly. I know I would want it set up like that.
I think it's more of a workaround to the fact that it's only by luck and not by good engineering that in-place upgrades works, because there are plenty of applications that don't like files being replaced underneath them. Like Firefox has a fit if files move or get removed. So I think it feels to me like the whole reason for the shutdown and do the offline upgrades is really so they don't even have to think about online upgrades.
Mhm.
It's something I think a lot of distros will probably consider, because it removes the fact that you have to worry about, like I say, a file being replaced while an application is running. But if your package manager can handle that, and if the application can handle that, then keep doing in place online upgrades.
So, well, you personally, Alan, do you consider that a good thing? The whole offline upgrades?
I hate offline upgrades. I think it's awful. I really do. I almost never turn my computer off, and I rarely reboot it. So I just do my updates. In fact, I have unattended upgrades on my Ubuntu machine here. I have unattended upgrades running, so pretty much everything is in the background. Periodically, I might upgrade, and now I'm on 2004, which is in development. There are way more updates, way more often, and so I'm probably going to manually do it in the command line now and then. But personally, I would rather software. I'm not one of these people who has to know every file of every package that's on my system. If I need a piece of software, I'll install it, and if I get updates for it, great. I'm not the kind of person who has to micromanage all the files on my system like a Slack user might. I don't care. I've got better things to do in my life than worry about what version of libx11.so.6, and what directory it's in. I don't care.
Surely you must reboot though after every kernel upgrade, otherwise you don't get the latest kernel. Oh, you don't?
Well, on LTS I've got Canonical Live Patch, so I don't have to. If for a lot of security updates, I don't have to. And when I get a kernel update, I generally don't reboot anyway. I reboot when I have to, not when I want to.
Cool.
Now, I'm a totally different user on that particular thing. As after every update, I'm probably hitting that reboot anyway, just to make sure everything's going to work properly, because I've broken so many computers by not doing it. I run Debian SID, so when you're running those updates, a lot of times you'll run something right in your background, and I'll be like, what in the world is going on here? Because I'll start something up, it won't like it or something like that. So I always hit that reboot whenever I run my updates.
I normally reboot after updates as well, because it's just proper practice, and it actually makes sure the correct files are being used, not the cached in memory. So one of the main reasons I reboot.
Sure. All right, then, if nobody else has got anything to add or say about Fedora, we've got lots more that Rocco wants to talk about this evening. So over to you, Rocco.
All right. Well, I would like first to welcome all of the people that are not usually here, because there are a lot of new faces, including Yuri. Yuri was here last week. Luis and Connor, glad you could all make it.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Well,
hello.
If you don't know, Connor is part of the Linux Lads podcast, which is a podcast you guys should be listening to. So
you're not always safe for work.
It's not
Rocco,
always safe for work.
Yeah.
But
Do you have a filter or delay in here with Connor? Because
I don't have a delay, so we're gonna have to wing it, and Connor's gonna have to behave. So
I like how that was the first thing Connor said. There wasn't hello or yes, our podcast is about Linux. It was like, it's not safe for work, just to give everyone opportunity to not listen if they want.
That's a very good description, especially with this last new episode that just came out, where they talked about the Librem 5 and that whole thing.
And some F-bombs may have been dropped during it. So
may have been.
FYI.
Do you want
I've got a great idea for you, Connor. You should do a Patreon sponsored edition only that has no F-bombs in it, so that if people want to hear your quality content but they don't want the F-bombs, they have to pay a few pounds.
There you go.
There you go.
I think you should do it the other way around.
Okay.
Hey, Connor, I work at Linux Gamecast, so we're the kings of.
Yeah.
I don't, but the boys do.
Yep. Well, Connor, can you give us the safer work version of what you were talking about the Librem 5?
Yeah, well, the probably a summary of it was that I was just disappointed about how they're currently interacting with the community. I feel that they're not as transparent as they could be, and I think that's putting it mildly. So it was more or less me venting my frustration of that fact. I mean, there are price increases. Without going into the USA edition, they have increased their price, their regular phone by $100. So there is price increases. What are the reasons, or is there costs going up? Just more transparency is the lack of transparency was my main frustration, I'd say.
So Connor, if me being in the USA, how much would I have to spend to get one of those phones?
Specifically the USA edition?
Yeah.
I think that's $2,000 of your fine.
Oh, 2,000,
of your
yes.
of your fine US dollars.
Okay, that's slightly high. I'm just saying. For any phone, we're on any planet, wherever it is.
So their argument is they're guaranteeing the origin of those components in the device. So for very specific customers based in the US who want to be confident that the device was definitely manufactured in the US, and they have a high confidence that third parties or other rogue nations haven't interfered with their device. That's the sales pitch, right? That's why this $2,000 device.
But are they guaranteeing it's US made components or US made put together? Because my understanding is they can't get some of those bits made in the US.
And are their guarantees as good as their release dates?
Made in US just means it's assembled in the US.
Yeah. And even materials, some of them can be in US because they are not even in US. They don't grow, they don't exist in US without being imported from Africa, Europe, and stuff like that.
Well, either way, it was a good conversation. You should listen to
it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just don't listen to it at work.
Right, exactly. Anybody else want to get in on that Librem 5 before we move on?
I think it's been done to death in Twitter. And everybody.
Yeah, I think it has. And I probably won't want to do a safe for work rendition for it. So,
all right.
Well, actually, can a phone has it? Can you call with it now, or is still that an open bug?
Well, apparently so. They have specially built and shipped Gardner, the Linux gamer or whatever his name was now, a special copy that works. But rumor has it it's just a Librem phone shell with an iPhone inside.
Well, we don't know about rumors, but I think it is the only working one available right now.
So as someone who has worked a bit on Linux phones, what they're doing is really hard. Like they're made, and they've made it super hard for themselves in like 3 very obvious ways. One obvious way is they're making their own hardware. When we did the Ubuntu phone, we reused other companies who already had existing hardware. So the factories already existed. They could all, I mean, a part of what we had to do was to get the image made and get it into their factory. They spin the factory up and out pop Ubuntu phones, right? That's massively simplifying it. But the fact that they're making their own hardware makes everything they do an awful lot harder. They're writing an awful lot of it from the ground up, the applications, the libhandy library that makes applications scale down to that size. So they've given themselves a hard task. So I'm not surprised that it's difficult, because it was difficult for us, and we were doing just the software. We weren't doing the hardware. So,
But do you think they would have had less of a hard time had they been honest and open and upfront. Like you've just explained, look, listen, boys, girls, this is not an easy task. We are building it from scratch. There are going to be hurdles, and not keep going, yeehaw, we've got a phone we've shipped. No, you've shipped developer bits out. Yes, we've finally got one working and nobody on YouTube can make phone calls. If they had been open and honest from day one, I think people would still be rooting. Yeah, go on, Liebram, you can do it. But, all these crazy, £2,000 for a US built phone is just nonsense.
I think where the mistake they've made, I think what we'll look back in history and see the mistake they made was being over ambitious and over promising and under delivering. And I think there are a lot of tech startups that try to do that try to promise the world and fail to deliver. And
But isn't that the first thing you're taught in project management? Never extend yourself. Never tell somebody you can do it in 2 days. Tell him you'll take 5 and then deliver in 3, and then you'll be the hero.
Right. And it's really difficult to do when they're breaking new ground. It's not like they're just building a slightly different version of a thing that already exists. They're doing new stuff. And so and this is a new world for them, much like it was for us. Like the company had never made phone software before, but we had a couple of apps but we'd never built, everything, including the display server and the desktop and all of that. So I feel sympathy for them because I know they've bitten off an awful lot more than they can chew, I think. And I would like them to succeed. I really would. But I think they need to have their head out of the clouds a little bit and maybe be a little bit more realistic. Maybe 2020 is the year for purism to, get off the hype train a little bit and speak the truth a little bit more.
Well, I think that hits it on the head there, Alan. It's not just, all of us would be understanding of that, wanting them to have high ambitions. All of us want a Linux phone. All of us were initially rooting for them. I don't think it's the high ambitions. I think it more leans to just, this goes to intentions, but it seems from the surface that they are not just high ambitions. They are sometimes dishonest ambitions, where they are saying, here comes a phone for you, and they know that it can't make phone calls. So if you know that going in, how can you go out there and say, here, we're shipping a phone? So
right. And they need to be able to sleep at night, and if they're okay with that and their conscience is clear, so be it. I couldn't do that.
Right. Exactly.
Well, yeah, you would think that one of their first priorities with a phone would be making sure it can do its primary function of making phone calls before shipping any type of device. I would have thought that would have been their first priority in this. I think that is a major problem, and that's why I'm still rooting for them, but that's why I'm also skeptical. And part of this whole thing, and charging like $2,000 for the phone, it almost seems like they are running out of money now, and they are trying to use future orders to fund the current batch, and that could turn around and bite them right in the rear end for Ponzi schemes, etc. And that's ridiculous.
So
yeah, one's going to argue with you there.
Yeah.
Well, making a phone make phone calls with a whole new software stack is hard.
Yeah.
And it's also hard when you're using existing software that wasn't designed to go on a phone. Like Pulse Audio was never designed to go on a phone. And I'll give you an example. The Ubuntu phone, we had it making phone calls before it shipped, just saying, right? And the one of the problems though is it was using desktop software like Pulse Audio, and I remember being at my daughter's recital at school, and I had an Ubuntu phone in my pocket, and there was a bug, and it would at maximum volume scream noise, like really loud, the most annoying, irritating, screaming noise. And it was due to a bug that if you got a notification, the phone would go ding and then go back to sleep. And then a little while later, it would go ding when you get another notification. And the bug was when the first ding happened, the aggressive power management in the phone would put the phone to sleep. But it hadn't finished sending the audio to the audio chip and was cut. And when another notification comes in, the phone wakes up and immediately garbage is being sent to the audio card. And so when you got two notifications in a row, the second one would cause it to just scream because the garbage was being sent to the sound card. I had to get up and leave the room because holding down the power button wasn't stopping this thing screaming. And I had to leave the room. So, bugs like that with audio playback on a subsystem that wasn't designed for mobile devices where the CPU can go to sleep at any moment, I feel their pain. I really do.
Yeah, but then admit it. I think everybody would have been fine to say, okay, you said you were going to produce a phone in 2 years, and we all thought that was a bit ambitious, or however long they said. If they then come back 6 months later and go, do you know what, boys, I think we've underestimated this. This might take us 4 years. Everybody had gone, yeah, great, good information. But the fact that they just kept chugging along and rolling along and sending out these products that were below par and below what people expected, and then to say that, yes, they've finally shipped a phone, and is it a phone or was it just a case with some bits and pieces in it that did some phone functionality, but not everything? That was just...
I think some of their marketing choices are questionable, saying something's in the wild and in fact it's 2 employees who have them is pushing the boundaries of the truth. And I think they should possibly reconsider that approach. But that's difficult because, as I understand it, that comes from the top and it's very difficult to change that kind of...
Well, also, if they were honest, like with this virtual batch, I never actually saw an official release that from them that said, hey, this phone is not fully functional. It doesn't even make phone calls. I didn't even see that in any news briefs whatsoever.
I think they did. I think it was clear that the early batches would be, for enthusiasts. I think you could infer that message. I don't think anyone thought this was an iPhone killer on day one.
No.
No.
See.
All right. Did we?
Who makes phone calls anyway on a handy?
Right.
Yeah. One thing I would like to say is they have problems making the phone. Why didn't they announce additional new products that are completely different, in completely different spheres? So basically, they do themselves a lot of work, but they don't deliver on time, or at least they don't say we can't deliver on time because of said reasons. They just send out half-baked products so they can say they delivered on time.
Yeah,
I think we beat that to death. Okay. Moving on. We have here Yuri and Luis, who both are from Nitrix. And we did talk a little bit about Nitrix last week on the Biddle episode, but our Fedora 31 challenge is ending. So I'm going to give the floor to either of these guys and see if they can convince us to try Nitrix on the next Biddle challenge.
Well, I'm gonna try my best.
Do it. Do it.
So, I spent the whole morning. Well, I slept, I think, until 7 a.m. today because I was trying to improve B-Metal. We want to start implementing some of the to-do things that we wanted on B-Metal. But yeah, we are also starting to get work going on something that that we're calling right now PNX. That's pretty much Pac-Man for Nitrix. As you know, The Nitrux, well, as we talked about the last show in Nitrux, we have currently 2 ISOs. One of them is pretty much well, Ubuntu, and we have added the NX desktop. There's another ISO that is more like an experimental ISO where we have put the things that we have been developing, MauiKit, CNX, and vMetal. And there's also the ISO that Philip and Manjaro have done, where they are putting NX desktop. So so something that it's seems to be missing for some people in the development ISO is that there's no package manager. Well, not a traditional package manager, because we specifically focus on app images and on that ISO, on the development ISO. So when someone that it's used to Linux distributions, desktop Linux distributions, tries Nitrux for the first time, usually, well, you would want to install the software that you are used to using, and as we acknowledge, there's not a lot of app images yet, so you would want to do it using a package manager, right? Like you would normally use, and but because we don't use a package manager, well, a traditional one, most people, well, have a hard time getting an app image or trying to get the software that they need. So what we want to provide with PNX is, well, basically a package manager, in this case Pacman. Personally, I like Pacman a lot. I think it's one of the best package managers. It's like it's a really advanced, powerful package manager, but it's not so. It's also not so like noob friendly oriented.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, so I guess in that way we can provide that part that to some users it may be missing, because there's not enough app images yet. So with that, users can just either use app images or use a well, the package manager, in this case Pacman. And maybe the most interesting part about what we want to do with PNX is that it's going to be an app image. So yeah, so there's going to be an app image of Pacman that you can use anywhere, pretty much.
And it's going to interact with the system just like you wouldn't even know, correct?
Yeah, we're aiming for PNX to be like very integrated, and in that you could just use it as if it was just another command, and that everything that you install with it, it's gonna be integrated in the desktop. So in the same exact way that you would just use Pacman -s and install Firefox, you would see the Firefox icon in the app menu, and you would be running the Arch Linux version, the newest version of Firefox, or whatever other program that you install with it.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Luis, you have anything you want to add to the conversation?
Just that maybe the app image creators may be mad at us because the point of an image is not using package managers. That's all. But well, some users might find it handy, so yeah, it's okay for me.
All right. Well, I don't make any promises because it'll be up to everybody's vote on what we choose. But it is going to be in the list later tonight on the regular Biddle show, as far as it's going to be up for nomination for the next distro challenge, but we shall see how it works out.
Yeah, sure. Cool.
I'd be into it.
All right. I do want to go back to something Zeb had said earlier about the 2004 releases, and he was checking out Ubuntu Budgie. I was talking to Dustin Prysak from Ubuntu Budgie, and he had said to me before, he had asked me a long time ago, what is it that would make you want to run Budgie? What, is there something that's holding you back from running Budgie? And Budgie has some of the best defaults out there as far as the desktop environment is concerned. If you're looking at the normal paradigm of what you consider a traditional desktop and still have it be modern. So I think it has great defaults. The one thing that always lacked in my mind in Budgie was the menu. And I know there are a lot of people out there that don't really care about a menu or don't see that as a big issue. But I see it as a big issue because I see the user interacting with that menu often. And that was what I had said to him. Well, he came back to me later and said to me, hey, can you try this out? And what this was David from Ubuntu Budgie took the elementary menu and basically forked it to work with Ubuntu Budgie. And this menu hit the nail on the head as far as what Budgie needed to go over the top to get more people to use it out of the box. Like when you first boot into Budgie, you're met with this modern feel of a desktop, and the menu is not so modern. This menu, now you have to add a PPA to do this, to try this menu out. And it's still in the working stages because obviously it has to be forked over from Pantheon over into Ubuntu Budgie. But they have done an excellent job with making this menu feel like it's part of the system. When you opened the menu before, it felt like an afterthought. That menu felt like it just didn't flow with the whole system. This new menu flows with the system and gives it that modern look. And I guess what I'm saying is I would probably suggest all you guys who are interested even slightly in Budgie to go and check it out. If you have Ubuntu Budgie installed, you can install the PPA and then install it as a desklet or desktop, or what is they called in Budgie? Widgets? I forget exactly what they're called. And you can add it to your panel. And what I ended up doing was I ended up removing the regular Budgie menu and putting in that menu, and it's absolutely awesome. Just what they need.
I think it's already, if you download Budgie Focal or Focus, it's already in there, because I certainly didn't add any PPAs. So I think they must be starting to include it in there to get it tested, because it didn't feel like the old Budgie menu. I mean, I think I remember you talking about before when the more you searched for something and used for something, the more it appeared at the top of the menu, and it didn't always appear in the same place than the previous. But I didn't experience that at all in any of my testing. It was just a nice, slick, dare I say, Whisker-esque type menu where you just typed for what you wanted, and there it was. Or you could go through your categories, and there it was. A much nicer implementation for sure. But I'm pretty sure it's in.
Well, I don't know. You may be thinking about their menu. Maybe they just did some updates to the menu, because this looks like the elementary Pantheon menu. Like this looks like it's a icon based, and you can switch it to a list mode, but it's an icon quarter screen based menu that you can enlarge, use more columns, use more grid lines. So
okay, I'll ask Dustin in Telegram then. So
I'm pretty sure you got to add it as a PPA.
Point me in the right place, yeah.
It's definitely an awesome menu that you should check out. Now, my question to you guys is, do you guys think it matters? Does a menu matter anymore in today's computer usage?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say yes, yeah.
As a GNOME user, I normally disable the menu, so the standard app menu, but I normally put an application menu up there. So yes, it can, but I usually hardly ever use it these days anymore. I just press the Windows key, type in whatever I want, press enter, and it pops right up. So,
well, that's kind of why I asked the question, because there are a lot of users that will just hit the meta key and start typing and hit enter. There'll be a lot of people that use a dock that has their their favorite programs on there. So it may not matter as much as it used to, but I still think it matters. So let's discuss it.
For my personal use cases, I actually use uLauncher. So yeah, you're correct. I do press a shortcut and then just start typing. But I would say that it's certainly for muscle memory. A lot of people are used to clicking on a menu and navigating it that way. So I definitely do see a use case for it still.
All right.
Yeah,
Alan,
I've got to agree with that.
Bearded Wonder, go ahead.
Yeah, I've said this before on the show and the various other shows I'm on, that for me, a menu just is the way I learned computing back in the Windows 95, 98 days. So anything that doesn't have a menu just makes it so much more difficult for me. I'm currently on Ubuntu Studio, and I'm using the Whisker menu in XFCE, and it's beautiful. It just works. You can search on it, and you've got access to everything. Yeah, I still use the personal stuff on the taskbar at the bottom and put me regular software on there, but sometimes you want to look for stuff that you haven't got on your taskbar.
And for a new user, they're not going to know about, hit your meta key, start typing, or press Alt F2 and bring up another menu. They're going to want to go to a clearly defined, sensibly categorized menu. And therein lies, for me, the problem. What somebody calls nicely categorized isn't what somebody else is going to call categorized. So, you'll go to try and find something and it isn't under multimedia as you thought it would be. It was under something else. So that's a difficulty that they've got. But I think the new user coming to a system will want to see a nicely laid out menu. Now I can see Alan shaking his head because he's probably thinking of people using mobile phones and stuff or whatever. But so why don't you think they need a good menu, Alan?
So Rocco's question was, does it matter? And I think the answer is no and yes. No, yes, it matters because some people prefer one thing over another. And one of the things we've learned over the years of Linux is people like to customize and twiddle their machines. And there are hundreds of different distros, and there are thousands of people running all those different distros. So people like the different experience, right? But I think the hierarchical categorized menu is a bit of a legacy from the past, the old Windows 95 days where you would hunt and peck through a list in order to find the thing. And that is objectively slower to go click, 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 click to get to Notepad, right? It's slower than just pressing a button and typing NO and pressing enter. Now, some might argue that they are the world's fastest menu navigator and they've turned off all their animations and they've got that menu path nice and slick. That's great for that one person, but not for everyone else. I look at my phone and I don't see categorizations, or any categorization I have is totally on me. I put these colored blobs of icons inside groups of other blobs which are related, which you can do in GNOME Shell. You can, create a group and have a bunch of things that are related together, and then that's only one click extra. It's not hunting down a path. And
but they can still click on the menu and go search.
Right. And I think that's the primary way people should use it. it is the primary way on basically every operating system now. So I get it that some people prefer the other way, which is why I say no, it doesn't matter, because you can add that if you need to.
Well, I would argue that even on a phone, all you have to do is pull up the menu or pull down the menu. Pull
What
down
menu?
like for I'm not the menu, your search function. So on an
Right.
iPhone, you would just swipe down and you have your search function there. I don't even have to start typing because my favorite apps are right there on the front.
Yeah, just like Linux. Down your launcher down the left-hand side or along the bottom or along the top or wherever it is. You can certainly pin your favorites, which is exactly what you're doing on Android
Right.
on the desktop. But that's not a menu. That's just shortcuts into the big
But it's
wall of icons.
not a menu per se, but it is the same concept. You're doing something to get to those icons. So you're swiping down and either searching or hitting the button, or
so maybe I misunderstood. I felt like your assertion was a hierarchical menu like Windows 98 or
No.
like Ubuntu.
No, just a menu
GNOME
of some
That's
sort,
why.
yeah.
That's kind of why I'm excited about this specific menu, is because it is icon based or list based, however you want to say it. But it is based on, you can make it bigger, so you can have your apps right there. So all you have to do is Meta and click a button, or Meta and they're all right there. So it's not that's what I was trying to get them away from of their older menu where it was hierarchy, categories, and everything else.
Great, we're on the same page then. Everyone should just press the super key and start typing and then press enter.
But don't
Done.
most menus nowadays as well have that all function where you'll come along, you'll look on all, and then you can just scroll down the all list. So if categories don't necessarily work, why do all software centers have categories of programs?
Because there's way more of them. There's because there's millions of things in the store, and the categories are often not just here's all the internet things. They're often here are the top things, or here are the highest grossing things.
Just as you mentioned with the search function where you would meta and start typing, that's what I do with a software manager.
Right. But the mental model of a store is different from the mental model of your computer. Mental model of your computer is I have things on my computer. I have my stuff on my desk that I want to search for. I know what they are because I put them there. But the mental model of a store is I want to go and browse. When you go to Walmart, you don't necessarily already know the exact path to get to the sugar because they move it around all the time. You don't necessarily know the exact path to the eggs because it's not in the same place all the time. It's not you're browsing for new things in a store, so you're going to search, whereas on your desktop you know where it is.
Yeah, but I don't know the 2022 packages that Fedora have stored on my computer because they're part of XFCE. So I've still got hundreds, if not 1,000 applications that I need to search through.
Do you really need to? Because most of those won't be really applications. A lot of them will be libjpeg and libz and libx11 and stuff you're never going to actually search for.
So how many applications do you think are on the average install of any sort of, and we're not talking about these ones that become really bloated, but let's say a basic Ubuntu, how many, are you talking about 200 or less than that?
20, 50, 100, that kind of area. I'm just guessing. I've got no idea. I agree with you. I think the search is the best way to get there.
Yeah. I use both models, and one of the reasons why, in like my animation rigs, I'm a special use case, I know, but I have thousands of graphics and animation apps installed, and I can't remember the names of all of them. So I make my own custom menus. But on my broadcasting rig, I just usually use Terminal and launch my apps. So I've done it both ways, and I like the Unity GNOME way of doing it too. So,
well, if for example, like for Pop! OS, I have my panel on the left. I have certain favorite programs that I have sitting in that panel, but I don't want the whole thing filled up with every application, and the more you open, the more it gets bigger and all this. So I only have certain ones in there.
Yeah.
The rest are just sitting in the menu waiting for me to get to when I need them.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
All right. Anybody else want to get on the whole menu?
Yeah, I was just going to say that Alan's talking about if you know what you're looking for. But if you don't know what you're looking for, I've just said I've just installed Ubuntu Studio, and there are thousands of programs that I don't even know what they are, let alone what they do.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for a new video program, I go into the video section, and then I can see, right, there's all these programs here that I don't know what they are, but I can go and have a look and see what they do because I know they're going to be something to do with video.
You
So
could
I can
just
check them
search
out.
for video as well.
Yeah, but when I search for video, I see a load of stuff, but I don't. I can't guarantee that every single one of them is a video thing, because some of them may come up because you've typed VI something. So, whereas if you go into the video section or the audio section, you know it's got something to do with those two things.
Well, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
Well, I would challenge you to look through those categories and really think hard about whether the things that are in there really do represent the category that they're in. And I think you'll find some that really don't.
Yeah, like edutainment in maths.
Oh yeah.
Like one time, I believe I saw a link for Pac-Man, for an Arch, for Pac-Man, the editor and package manager in games section. So yeah.
Connor, you wanted to get in?
I was just off the top of my head while you guys were talking. I was thinking of the default menu in a desktop environment that is still obeying the old hierarchical menu system, and I'm thinking Mate with its 3 menu system, and possibly LXQT, but I haven't used LXQT in quite a while, so I don't know if they have a search functionality in their default menu. I know there is the Mate menu they can install in Mate. Oh, they do the in LXQT.
Yeah, LXQT's
okay.
menu does have a search function.
So Connor, are you talking about the advanced? You're talking about the advanced Mate menu. The Brisk menu is the more modern with that search function. So while I interrupted everybody here, to answer Zeb's question about Budgie, Dustin says it is not currently in the 20.04 ISO spin at this time.
Okay, cool.
So
thank you.
I think one of the big questions that we get into as Linux users and users is, are we trying to create a better environment, the environment we want, or are we trying to make an environment that users are used to? Because there's a big question. Let's just take GNOME because it's easy to throw under the bus. Everyone can always throw stones at GNOME. So there's a big thing about not having icons on the desktop. There is the ideas about not having a sys tray. There is the ideas about not having a traditional menu. But if I look at the people that I work with, they're almost all using Windows. They have desktops that look like something exploded on them. They are
yes.
they are
icons everywhere.
And they all use the menu. So if you present something, and I'll say it, a lot of people say Cinnamon is a great introduction for a Windows 7 user coming to Linux. Are we trying to create something where we think this is more ideal, this is more efficient, and we're putting those ideas in, this is what we think? Or are we going to try to adapt to what a user base is used to make it easier to transition? And it's a big question. I think that's a bigger question than just do I think menus are important. I think there's a big question going down. Where are we going? Are we trying to make something that we think, for various good reasons, and the GNOME guys really do detail reasons why they think that this is better and this is more efficient, and something like Elementary taking that to its, to a logical conclusion? Or we have so many users used to this idea of how an operating system on a computer works, and they're presented with something that's like, oh my. I think that's a legitimate thing to discuss.
I think it's a mistake to make an operating system that isn't Windows look like Windows. I think it's a mistake to make it behave a bit like Windows, because you set the expectation for the new user that, oh, this is like that thing I already use, and that breaks the second you get beyond the capabilities of that simple menu. As soon as you get beyond that and you start looking for, well, where are my settings? Well, they're up in the top right hand corner. I would expect them to be bottom in the bottom right corner or something like that. I think unless you can make it, bit for bit perfect and looks like Windows in every possible way, then you're never going to get to the point where it's worthwhile doing, because someone will always be on your little path and then fall off and go into the weeds as soon as they get beyond the capabilities of your menu.
I think
one thing I would say is that it seems to be that with the impeding end of service of Windows 7, that KDE seem to be heavily marketing that aspect of it. It's almost like we're the perfect desktop environment for people who are used to the Windows 7, which more power to them, and we'll see how it works out. But that doesn't. That does seem to be something that they're targeting.
I think that, excuse me. I think that Bill, you mentioned about, what are we trying to do? I don't think you want to, and it kind of echoes what Alan said. I don't think you want to try to make everything so that it's easy for everybody. I think that's the reason why we have so many desktop environments, and I think every desktop environment collectively can support someone. If you're coming from Windows, you will find either a distro or desktop environment that will suit you the best. For us to try to, I don't think it's such a narrowed down question to say we're either going to support, or we're either going to want it to be what we want, or we're going to want it to be what would be better for people to come to Linux. I don't think it's like that narrow of a question, because we have so many distros, we have so many desktop environments that look completely different, that like I said, you will find a distro or desktop environment that suits you if you look around. There are so many. Luis, you wanted to get in? All right. Anybody else want to get in on the whole menu thing, or the whole bigger question of making it suit people?
Well, I don't think it's possible to suit everybody with one desktop environment. Everybody thinks different. Everybody is different. I think that's why I think customization is a very important part of every desktop environment, is so you can customize a base operating system to work the way you want it to.
Well, if you just even take, like the guys we have here, if you even take Ubuntu or you take Manjaro, both offer pretty much every desktop environment out there that you can think of, or you can install any desktop environment out there on them. I don't think we need to target specific people, like say specific people coming to Linux from Windows, like when 7 goes end of life. There are many distros out there from Zorin OS on down to that would fit that bill, and I just don't think it's a necessary thing. I think that, like, this example that I bring up with the Ubuntu Budgie is a great thing for people to have that alternative. I don't think they're getting rid of that menu that they have. I think this is going to be an alternative menu. If it was me and I had the decision power, I would probably make it the default, because I feel it looks better and works better. But that's just my opinion, and I'm just one user. So them guys will do whatever they feel is best for their distro. But I think this brings something to the table that it didn't have before.
Yeah. Can I just say, the great thing about Linux is that, like you said, Rocco, we've got all the choice we've got. So you can find something that fits for everyone. But if we don't attract Windows users when they first come into Linux, in an environment that they can feel a little bit familiar with. Yes, it's not Windows, and it's radically different from Windows in the sense of these things work differently and you can't install the same software. But you've got to give them something that they can latch onto that makes them feel comfortable. And then gradually, as they get used to it, they can start learning that it works slightly different, and these other things they can go to, these different paradigms they can go to. They don't have to have a menu if they don't want it. But we've got to give them that in. When I came to Linux 12 years ago, if GNOME had been radically different to the Windows XP that I was used to, I might not have stuck with it. But because it was familiar enough, I stuck with it and I learned the differences and I was able to get through those humps.
Well, I don't know, Tony. I'm sorry, go ahead, Zeb.
I was going to say, but surely any menu system will fulfill that requirement. Yeah, you come to your desktop and you're looking for that. Oh, hang on, look, applications. Click on there. Oh, look, there's a menu. Maybe I'll get all my bits and pieces here. So whether it looks like Cinnamon and XP, or whether it looks like LXDE and is that hierarchical awful thing where you have to go 15 layers down, it's a menu system. They go to the internet, they find Firefox. So I think any menu system that's available will work. But Mitchell Valentino made a very good point about people's perspective. Lots and lots and lots of people have jumped to Google Chrome. Is there a menu system in Google Chrome? No, it's just like a flaming great app store, like on your phone. You click on the button and up pop all these applications. So people can learn to adapt really, really quickly. And I think we as the Linux community would just rub everybody up the wrong way at the end of Windows 7 life by saying, oh, you must come to Linux. Let them find Linux themselves. And then when they've found it, be welcoming, help them, answer their what you think is now a stupid question because you've been using it 10 years. Remember what it was like when you first started using Linux, and just be welcoming with them, be understanding, and let them, you may have to give them the same answer 1,000 times, but eventually your thingamabob will be there watching me call it, and they'll understand what you're talking about.
The only dumb question is the one you don't ask.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say, Tony. You came to Linux, and I would argue that I don't think, you had said, well, if I would have found the GNOME experience, I might not be on Linux today. I think you would be, just because everybody in this room is that type of person, is that type of user where they wanted to try to find something different than what they were using. And there were reasons why they came to Linux. The people that are going to try, or the people that we feel are going to try something different when Windows 7 comes to end of life, some of them may, and some of them may not. And they might just go to Windows 10. I don't think we're going to see like this huge, massive influx of people, especially normal, everyday user type people who just want to browse the web and that kind of stuff. I don't see that we're going to see this big influx of people. We're just going to see the people that actually want to explore things and actually want to take it further come to Linux. And like I said, there are so many distros and desktop environments out there. Those people will be able to find one they like.
And I don't think that's ever going to happen until you can walk into Walmart or Asda or PC World and have a row of desktops, and they're not just all Chromebooks or Windows, until you've got half a dozen Linux machines in there as well. And they might then go, oh, what's this? Oh, hang on a minute, this is fairly easy. Until that happens, you're not going to get a huge influx. If we get 1%, we'll be lucky.
I agree with Zeb. I mean, I don't know if it'll be available to general consumers, but I think there was a recent announcement that Dell are going to be spreading Ubuntu more to more of its lineup, and that it could possibly make it to the front page. I don't know, but I think I think there were a couple of Ubuntu laptops at CES on Dell's booth. I think that was shared around social media. So to echo Zeb's point, Zeb certainly it would certainly pique people's curiosity to see an alternative operating system just generally for sale. I mean, rather than Dell recommends Windows and everything, to at least have a choice up there.
Yeah, and the thing is, you got to get the manufacturers on board, but also with what Rocco said about Windows users, especially with Windows being free, it's Windows 10 upgrade being free if you're using Windows 7 and above. People are just going to say, well, I'm just going to click this button and I'm going to be safe from Windows 7 end of life. And it's really easy and I don't have to learn that much, which is not true. Windows 10 can be drastically different from Windows 7. But the thing is, yes, you just have to, if there aren't that many computers that come with Linux out of the box, people probably aren't going to try it as much. Especially if you're not computer savvy and you don't know how to install alternative operating systems, know how to take a USB drive and stick it in there and then boot it from the USB drive. It's just you still have to have a certain amount of computer knowledge to try Linux to a certain point these days, and a lot of people just don't have it.
A lot of people don't want to take the time to learn it. They could have it if they wanted to, but they got other things they're concerned about or more important in their life. So, but I think the bigger question to this is, we have this opportunity to get new users just like we did in 2019. 2020 brings a new year and new opportunities. What can we do as a community? And I asked this to the Biddle group the previous week, but you guys are a different bunch of people here and can obviously give some good opinions as well. So what can we do as a community to be open and friendly to these people that are trying Linux? Or maybe that is the answer.
So I'll jump in and say something.
Do it.
So Zeb said something just a minute ago about being nice and helpful to people. Last night in our Telegram chat, someone mentioned that not on our Discord server, but another Discord server, people were telling that individual that they were too stupid to use Linux. This person felt really bad and was saying that they're going to maybe switch to Windows. And this comes back to what Zeb said. We need to be nice. Telling someone that they are not smart enough to use Linux is a horrible way for us to act. And I think that, looking back at how we treat people that we may think are not technical, we have to just be good. Looking at Steam, we have less than 1% in December's numbers of Steam usage. And if we are not nice to people that are not engineers, sysadmins, we will never grow Linux larger than that 1%. And it's just not, if you don't know the answer, that's fine. Just don't be, I won't use any curse words, just don't be that person that makes someone's experience in Linux go, I'm just going to switch back to Windows because you people are jerks. Don't be that person. So
I think the problem, Bill, is that you're preaching to the choir, and we already all feel this. And the mythical person that you're talking about, who is not a good representative of Linux, shall we say, does not care. They don't care if more people use Linux. They don't care what distro you're using. They don't care about any of that. They're happy in their world. And if you could just go away, that'll be great. So I think there's a disconnect here, because there is no Linux community. There's a whole hodgepodge of different people with different opinions, and many of them absolutely vehemently disagree with you and think that normies should not be using Linux, and therefore if you don't have the patience to learn how to install Arch, then you are beneath me and you need to go away. Please don't clip that out and pretend that I said that. But I really think that there is a disconnect here, and that there are plenty of us who are have the empathy and are willing to help new people, but there are some that don't, and I don't think you will ever convert those people.
No. And now I was just reading the chat, and Daniel Yount said RTFM is a common reply with a lot of those people. And I don't even know how that started, but I don't think that even should exist. But yes, we should be nicer to the newer people. But to me, though, we have a lot of the Arch guys out there telling, well, you guys should use Arch. And then they come right into Arch. They manage to get it installed by some miracle. Then they have roadblocks someplace where they can't find the answer. They go to the Arch forums, and that is a very, very common answer for newbie questions. Is you just say, well, I can't do this. Well, OTFM, go. And they don't even know where to look in the manual at all. And that is just not a helpful attitude whatsoever. And when I was first starting YouTube, and I had this troll person I had to block, and he literally said, well, if you can't figure something out, you shouldn't be using Linux at all. You should just go back to Windows. And well, then a lot of bad words he said a lot of bad words, and I was just like, well, that is a terrible attitude to have.
Well, those types of people make Linux look bad, but I personally don't consider them part of the community. They are only part of the community because they happen to use Linux, but being a part of the community is more than just using Linux. It is a there are things that you need to do, just like you would need to do as a person. There are things that you need to do to not be evil to people. You know, you shouldn't be a certain way. Hold on one second.
Snoring.
Anyway, yeah, lost my train of thought. But anyway, I don't consider those people part of the community.
Well, to me, if you can't be nice and courteous in a support forum and you're not willing to help even the new people, then you shouldn't even be there. You should just back out and just be off in your own little world if you're not even willing to help anybody at all.
All right, Big Pod, go ahead.
I would like to say, first of all, I would echo Alan's point that we are not really a community. We're just chemical mixture of different people trying to create something, like trying to be together, even though that person has a completely different opinion as me, and that person has a completely different opinion as me, and I'm stuck in the middle. But
yes, but I think that's what community is about, right? There are differing opinions. There are different people. That's what life is all about. Nobody thinks the same. I don't see that you could say that it's not a community because we think differently. We all think differently.
At best, we could be a Venn diagram, and only in the middle is where we really meet up. Everything else is just opinions and opinions and opinions.
It's not, Rocco, it's not that you have different people who think differently aren't a community. It's that you have different people who behave differently who are not part of the same community. And
correct.
That's why you have, city walls, and that's why villages separated out, because people had different ways of thinking, and that's why you have borders. It's not about the way you think, it's about your actions, and it's the actions that are the problem in this case. And because Linux is so open, it means that anyone can set up their own forum, their own community, and welcome new people in. And if people stumble in there and it's a super toxic environment, then those people are seen as representatives of Linux, even though you and I might not consider them. It's the old Monty Python Life of Brian sketch with the People's Popular Front of Judea and the Popular People's Front of Judea. They're all very, very similar, but they act completely differently, and so they're completely
splitters.
Right. I mean, it's exactly, but that's like, to me, that's like anything with life. And you could take that down to people, countries, whatever. There's people in America that I don't think they have way differing views of my views, and they don't act the way they should. They don't behave the way they should. But that doesn't make them a representative of America, in my opinion. But they still are viewed as part of America. And it's
But
the
I bet
same.
you don't hang out with them.
I
bet you
definitely do
don't-
not hang out with them.
And you don't invite them into your community, and you don't let them represent your community. That's my point, is they are siloed away from you. Yeah, you're on the same land mass. You're in
Right.
the same continent. We're all on the same planet.
Well, that's
but
what
we're
I said
separated.
earlier. I don't consider them part of the community. I don't consider those types of people. Big Pod.
Also wanted to say that onto the earlier thing that we or at least some subset of Linux users or majority think that this Windows 7 end of life will actually be a good thing for us, or it will even be an opportunity to bring people into Linux. In my opinion, no. Most people will just go. They have a tool called Windows 7. They will just switch to a newer, somewhat similar tool called Windows 10, and that's it. That's the end. That's the end of them for them about what an operating system is. It's just a tool, and Windows 10 is somewhat similar and somewhat same, made by same manufacturer. So they're gonna switch to a newer one. The end.
I would agree that most people are just going to switch to Windows 10, but it does present a small opportunity for those people that are on the fence, that are a little bit more technical, some power users, whatever you want to call it, to try out Linux. Maybe give it another try. Maybe they tried it before, they didn't, care for it. It does present an opportunity. I do think you're right that most people won't switch over to Linux for it. Go ahead, Tony.
I think one of the big opportunities is more to do with hardware. If you've bought, say, a PC or a laptop in the last 4 or 5 years with Windows 7 on it, and you think, oh, well, I've got to go over to Windows 10, A, you may not know how to do that, and B, you may think the hardware won't support it. Now, because people know in my communities, and that's not just within the geek community, it's in church, it's in various other places that I'm known that I'm a computer user and I work with computers and stuff. They come to me and they ask me my advice. And I think that's when we may have opportunities to say to people, well, what do you do with your computer? Do is your computer something that is 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old? It could run Windows 10, but also if you're only doing X, Y, and Z with your computer, there's this free operating system that's really secure. You could put this on. And I've done that with a couple of people, and they're happily now running Linux. Quite happily, because all they do is they access the internet, they do email online, and they do a little bit of word processing with a computer. They've had a Windows 7 laptop that's 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7 years old. It's currently running Linux now, and they're happy. And I think there are the opportunities where we may have, when people know us in the community who aren't geeks, who aren't into computers, who may come to us and ask our advice.
Jason, is there any way I can get your opinion on this take on what we can do to help? I mean, you're newer to the community, and I would love to hear what you think about this. We got no audio, Jason.
How about now?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Had it muted on the headset. All right. Well, like Rocco said, I'm very, very new to the community. I've been tinkering with Linux for just a couple months now, and I've found my way into the Telegram channels and a few Discords and other podcasts and things of that nature. And so far, my opinion on the community is, with at least the Linux community, as opposed to say other operating systems and stuff, is because I'm also members of Mac groups and stuff like that, because I tinker with everything. Is that the Linux community for me has been a lot more accepting. I've asked dozens and dozens of questions, and on the Linux for Everyone group, the Destination Linux group, Jupiter Broadcasting, whatever, and everybody's answered it with no problem. I go to some of the other groups, and it's a lot more. Maybe because of the areas where I'm going, like Facebook and they're like pages like that are
little more open to troll posts. But overall, I've had no issues with the Linux community. I was quite shocked. I was in that the Telegram when that person mentioned that they were thinking about going back to Linux, going back to Windows, because of that negative feedback. And we talked a little bit, her and I, and at least I think it was a she. And we came to the conclusion, she's going to go back to her original distro that instead of going back to Windows, she decided to go back to whatever it was that she was using before she tried using the one that she got the negative feedback on. But overall, I truly believe that the community is key. Like people are saying, it's what brings people in. Like me, if I didn't have this community wasn't accepting, and I probably wouldn't have stuck with Linux for as long as I have. I've tried, various distros. We've done a little hopping because I was exploring to find out which one was good for me. And then I landed on one, and I went to that group's, it was a Linux Mint. And I went to their forums, and whenever I had a question about anything, not a problem. I tried, I'm new, but I even dared to try Arch Linux. And yeah, it was a little out of my scope for now. I'll probably go back to that once I get a little more familiar. But their group was not necessarily as accepting as Linux Mint, because to me, I had a feeling that they wanted you to already, when you get into Arch Linux, you should be already knowing what you need, you should already know what you need to know to do it. I get the mentality I get from a lot of them. And I was on the another one of the podcasts, and they were talking about elitism in Linux. And I've seen some of that in some distros, where the community for those distros, especially particularly in the Arch realm, is where I've seen a lot of elitists, because obviously they're typically know more about Linux than the new user, and they expect you, if you're going to try to use Arch Linux, Arch Linux, that you should already know it before you attempt to use it, and they're not really as good at helping.
When you want to dip your toes in again, I know it's not just because Philip and Bernard are here, but if you want to dip your toes in, jump on Manjaro. Their forums are awesome, so friendly. No question is too stupid, because if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. And somebody, I think it was Penguin, I think, who hit the nail on the head. They say to you, well, go and read the wiki. Yeah, okay. Which one of the 2,500 pages on the wiki do I read? And then once I've found the bit that I want, how many levels have I got to go down to get to the actual answer? Yep. And then having got my answer, oh, where did I start off again? I think it was up here somewhere. Very, very confusing if you're not technically minded. And that's where a forum can make or break a distro. So when you're ready for Arch, definitely go for Manjaro.
Yeah, I'm definitely technically, and I agree there. I've been looking at Manjaro for a while. I've been tempted to try it out. I've got a couple older laptops that I've got coming in from family members that I'm going to be using for test machines. And one of my goals is, once they come in, I'm going to use Manjaro to give that a whirl. And there was some other ones. I have a list somewhere of stuff that I want to try, just to familiarize myself better with the different distros and different things out there, because I like to learn. It's basically, I work in IT, so it's it's definitely technology is a passion.
Yep. All right. Anybody else want to get in on what we can do as a community?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind us that from a desktop perspective, we must not forget that people who want to come over from Windows, they are not used to to constructing their environment. They maybe would use it the most in the most efficient way. Talking about the menu question before, they are used to figuring out how does this given environment work, and the environment is going to tell me how I need to behave in this. So when we want to open the doors for these people and we want to be welcoming, then it is important that what they find is not too overwhelming. So if they can, for a start, find an environment that is in a way at least somewhat familiar, then this is what would really help. It's not that that they are not intelligent enough or technical enough or too stupid to use Linux. It's just that you need to find an entrance somewhere, and to also get into somewhat of a new mentality of making stuff the way you want it to use and not the other way around. And the other thing I wanted to add about communities, it's in an open space like this where for example, also in the forum, you never know whom you will meet, right? It's also possible that in the Manjaro forum, you will find terrible answers, and you will deal with an asshole that answers an intelligent question. It's not in our hand necessarily. It's also these communities are not really defined. It's a variable space, and you can decide whom you deem a member of your community of the states or of the city you live in, or you can wish that some people would not belong to your community, but they still do. So,
well, that's why I would kind of say that we need to be proactive in what we're doing and how we're acting in the community, because you will find some of those people out there in the various communities, and we need to get to those new people before they do. We can't let those people be the only contact that that person has. So if you see a forum post or a Telegram chat that starts out that way, jump in, say something, make it known that's not the representative of what the community is, and let them also know that they will find other people that will be helpful.
Now, what I like to do if I see something like that, I say, whoa, guys, that wasn't very helpful, and all that stuff right underneath there, and then start pointing them in the right direction instead of those toxic messages, because at least also try and say that it's not necessarily a welcome response on those particular. Now, on a forum I help run, those type of answers get you banned. We don't want them at all. We make that very, very clear. However, not all forums are like that.
Well, I support that as the banning of negativity, because it'll just breed like a wildfire. You just leave it open for anybody to come in there and be negative. It's just going to spread. And yes, definitely. I've been in forums where I've said, like you said, you mentioned that's not productive, that's not helpful. And then I always start off with the next to the person that was getting that negativity. I would apologize to them on behalf, even though I'm not an administrator or anything like that, but I would apologize to them and say that is not the norm. And then if I can help them, I will help them. If not, I will point them to somebody that could, because like I said, I'm new, especially in the Linux community. I've seen it, I've done that, but I would send them somewhere else, because I'm not exactly fully knowledgeable myself. But there's no reason ever to mock somebody or be negative to somebody just because they don't understand a concept.
Yep.
Yes.
Jill, you got anything you want to add?
Be excellent to each other.
It's good advice. It's very good advice. All right.
Hey,
go ahead, Bill.
One. Didn't you have someone that's in this chat be on some show this week or something that maybe you may want to tell people about if they missed it?
Maybe, Bill. If you didn't know, well, I'm not going to announce next week's episode in this episode. But
no,
anyway,
I'm not talking about that. But there's someone that's here right now.
Yep. If you didn't see the Linux Spotlight episode with Philip in it, you have to go watch that, because that was such a great conversation. Phil, I don't know how you have time to do everything that you did in your life. This is a guy who has everything from dance instructor to judo to Linux in his history, and it was so great to hear all of it. And I kind of I started. So I have this, in my mind, I have this set way of going about Linux Spotlight and the structure and all this stuff. And I mentioned, about his hobbies, and he mentioned, I think, I don't know what it was, judo or something. And I had to go back to it. And then he mentioned all of this other stuff that I had kind of like glazed over. So we had to go back and talk about everything. Yeah, it was a fantastic episode.
Yay, Philip.
All right, we are rounding out the time here. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about, add before we get out of here? All right.
Yeah. Well,
do it.
I would like to ask the people here to try Nitrux and to try the Manjaro ISO that features NX Desktop. And if you want to know more about the things that Nitrux does, definitely check out the development ISO. Let me paste it on the
if you can post it in the Zoom chat, we'll get it on the YouTube chat. I don't know if you'll be able to post it in the YouTube chat.
I can post it on the YouTube chat, but
okay, there you go. That would be helpful.
Yeah, so you definitely want to try CNX, if you want to try MauiKit, if you want to try BMetal, if you want to see how a Linux distribution that specifically focuses on portable application formats, well, in this case, a image, definitely check it out. We want to see how we can improve it, and yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
we are going to present that, like I said, as an option tonight on the 8 o'clock stream as when we choose. So we'll see what everybody wants to try. All right, that is going to wrap it up for us. We are out of time. We'll be back in 3 hours, though. But everybody gets a last word, PZ.
Just to give an early reminder to everybody here in the chat and Zoom window that the next Biddle Europe will be Saturday, the 8th of February. So mark it in your calendars. It's the second Saturday of every month. And it's great to have a chat at a sane hour in the evening, 1 a.m. in the morning when we should all be knocking out Zeds. But great show as always, Rocco. And thanks to all of the new faces that we had turn up today for the Biddle Europe. Hope you can be here next month.
All right. Tony, last word.
Yeah, thanks for doing the Europe edition, Rocco. As Zeb said, it's excuse me, it's a much better hour for me. I'll probably still be here later as well, freezing cold and tired, but nevertheless, it's worth it. You got one thing wrong just now, Zeb, when you said about it. You said about knocking out Zeds. Surely that should be knocking out Caravan, shouldn't it? Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to the one later. And take care, everyone. And hopefully I'll see you either later or in the next Biddle Europe.
All right, Jill, last word.
Oh, thank you again, Rocco. I love being able to do the European edition. And I am actually hosting Linux Gamecast Weekly tonight when Biddle is on. So I'll be doing that for almost 6 hours tonight.
Oh my.
Yeah, because it's 8:30 Eastern to like 1, 2 in the morning. So
wow.
It's like our usual. But I wanted to say welcome to Jason, a new Linux community member. That's awesome. And Connor, I want to say I really love the Linux Lads podcast. I've been listening since the very beginning. And I need to listen.
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to listen to the latest episode because I haven't. It's in my queue. So I'm looking forward to that.
Just remember your headphones.
Yep. Well, when you listen to this latest episode, you will find out that Shane has very bad math skills. Just saying.
Okay.
But anyway, Penguin, last word. You are muted, sir.
That's better. Yeah, well, thank you for having us, Rocco, and I truly like the Biddle Europe, seeing all the new, other faces around. And you all have a great month or a great couple of hours, because I will see you guys tonight.
Awesome. Popey, last word.
Hello. Normally I would promote the Ubuntu podcast right now, but we're on a break for a while. So instead, I'll mention 8-Bit Versus, which is a little project that I'm doing with my friend Martin Wimpress, where we play old 8-bit video games on Sinclair Spectrum and Commodore 64, and we stream it on Twitch, and we're also on YouTube. And I'm going to cheekily paste the link in the chat now.
Do it.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And the question is always answered every week: which one was better, right?
You're right, and it's always the Spectrum. Martin
Obviously.
is just in denial. Just refuses to accept this material fact that objectively the Spectrum was better.
All right. Paste that link in the YouTube chat. Jill, can you paste the link for your show in there as well?
Sure.
Philip, last word.
Well, I don't think I will make it to tonight's US show because I'm really tired. But maybe at some later point, we will see. But definitely we will try to join almost every European edition here, because it's also for me a better hour to do so. Now it's about 23 o'clock, so yeah.
Definitely a better hour.
And if I do US, then it's some like 1 in the morning till 3 o'clock, and then you're groggy.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's great having both you guys here, so I appreciate you being here. Bernard?
Thanks for having us again. It's great fun to be here every time. And I would like to invite everybody, because we have just recently started to pre-tease our next upcoming edition. There are very early builds of XFC, the exciting new GNOME edition 19.0 coming up, and also the Plasma edition, where I will be uploading a new first improved after the first feedback pre-2 version. So for the very early testers, this is the great opportunity for them, and for us, of course, to try out the new stuff. So please give it a try.
Very nice. Get to testing it. Just saying. Bill, last word.
Just thank you for everybody, and it's good that Popey, he had a screw loose earlier, but he got that fixed, so everything is back and good and happy.
Some would say I still have a screw loose, but there we go.
But it's not on a ThinkPad anymore, so that's all that matters.
Correct, yes.
All right, the Bearded Wonder.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco. Thanks for putting on this Euro show. I accidentally remembered tonight. I was having a pre-meet-up with the Mintcast team, and then clicked on YouTube and saw that the feed was about to go live, so jumped in. Don't always remember. Just to say, we're recording our next show tomorrow night, Mintcast. So if you want to jump into the live stream, go to mintcast.org and check it out, and you can jump in. There might even be a special guest tomorrow night that some of you know.
Nice.
So, yeah. So thanks very much, and thanks for being part of my Linux community.
All right. Tony, you want to put a link in the chat for that as well?
I'll have to go to YouTube now.
Okay. Well, put it in the Zoom chat, and we'll transfer it.
Stick it in the Zoom chat, mate, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yuri, last word?
It's all right. Popey's already done it.
Yeah, so it's great to be here one more time. And yeah, it was really good to hear everyone's thoughts on the matter of welcoming new users and taking the opportunity now that Windows 7 is on its last legs to bring new users to Linux. And yeah, it's nice to see everyone around here.
Good to have you back, Yuri. Luis, last word?
I just wanted to say thank you to Rocco and Philip, because it was Philip the one who invited me to join. So thanks for inviting me. and I really enjoyed this chat, and well, happy to see you.
All right. Well, you're welcome back anytime, brother.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Big Pod, last word.
Thanks for having this European edition. It's at quite same hour, 9 p.m. Central European Time. So I don't know what to say. I'll see you, some of you, in a couple of hours.
All right, Connor, last word, brother.
Thank you for having me on. I was a little later because I was actually on my way home from the cinema. So, but I'm glad that I was able to hang out with you guys. I'm reluctant to plug my own podcast, but what I'll do is I will plug something that was recently announced in the last couple of days, which was Fast Talk Live. Which will be Saturday the 13th of June in the Harrison in King's Cross in London. So if anyone who's in the area or can travel to the area, it should be a good evening.
All right, somebody put a link in for Linux Lads, please. All right, Jason, last word, brother.
I just want to say, thank you for having the show. I'll definitely be back on the tonight on the later show, and look forward to seeing some of these familiar faces here back onto that show, and those that are not going to be on the show, you guys have yourselves a great night.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for us this week on this, your special edition. We do this so that people don't lose sleep. That's why we do this, okay? All right. I don't think I got to do any housekeeping. Everything should be set. Zeb, you said February 8th, I believe, is the next Biddle York.
Correct, yeah.
Because I will probably forget it. And the only reason I remembered to announce this one was because Tony reminded me. So there you go. I appreciate all of you for being here, especially all of the guys that have come in that aren't usually here. It's awesome to get to talk to everybody and see the different faces in the community and talk to the different people in the community. So I really appreciate you being here. Other than that, we'll see you in a couple hours for the next regular Biddle. We are officially closed for business. Until then, long live Linux.
We love you, everyone. Woo.
Live, laugh, and prosper.
Bye.
Bye.